London Reels. Way better idea. Sponsored by X-Brain. What's the first thing you do when you get into work in the morning? Check your email, right? Wrong. I took a tip from Tim Ferriss, former guest on London Reel, and I'm now following the information diet. You see, when someone sends you a message on Facebook, email, or even Twitter, it's their agenda for your time. And what you need to focus on is your agenda. So I stay off the email and the messaging systems until 12 noon every day. And instead, I write that proposal that I need to, I make that phone call, or worst case, I compose an email, but I do it offline. That way, you can get the most done with your day and not just continually be reactive to those who are demanding your time. That's today's Way Better Idea, brought to you by the folks at X-Brain. If you want to check out their Way Better protein powder, it's grass-fed, it's free range. You can get 15% off with the customer code LondonReal. Click on the link below or go to xbrain.co.uk. Peace!
Man cannot think or reason. I'm going to back it up if you give me a chance to before you get mad at me.
I was starting to get mad, but I will listen.
Okay. By that I mean that it is not possible for man to invent anything. And I spoke at Princeton at the sociology department. And I wanted everybody to come, so I titled the lecture, Man Can't Think or Reason. That made everybody angry, and they all wanted to come. So they came to the auditorium. And the head of the optics department said, I take issue with you. I believe man can think and reason. I said, give me one example of man thinking, anything. He said, there are thousands of examples. I said, I can't do anything with that. Give me one example. He says, there was a time when a camera did not exist, and somebody had to think of a box camera. So I asked him if he knew that 1,000 years ago in the Holy Land, they made their houses out of mud. They didn't have concrete, and they didn't have the mixtures we had. And when they made their houses out of concrete, they made a little hole in the concrete so you can tell whether it's daylight out there. And when you make a little hole in a black hovel, you can see the people walking upside down on your wall. Of course, they didn't know what it was. They called it the upside down world. They charged 2 pieces of silver for you to see the upside down world. If you go into a barn today, and there's a knothole, you know what I mean? It's small. If the sun is out on the cows, you'll see the cows walking upside down on the wall. That's where the box camera came from. So nobody ever said that. It's got to make a camera.
So it wasn't an invention, it was an accident.
Yes, the same with language. They say people invented language to communicate. That's strictly BS, bad science. In other words, there is no way you can think outside of your culture. You say, well, Tesla invented the wireless. He had to think of it. So I said, look, let's face it. When you bought electric wire, in the old days, they wrapped it around a cardboard spool so it wouldn't get tangled up. And if you had a spool, you didn't know it was broken in the middle of the wire, so you connected 2 electrodes to it to see if you get a flow of current. If you happen to have a coil nearby, it induced the current in it. That's where Tesla got it from. Induction, automatic. He didn't say, got to make wireless. The brain doesn't work that way. You can't say, I got to make a wireless, or I have to make a ladder. Although they tell you that plants grow in school, they can't grow unless the sun's out, the moisture's right, the soil is right, and the heat is right. Of themselves, plants will not grow.
Interesting. Jacque, you like shocking people a lot.
That's all right. I don't mean to. I mean to speak. You always say I'm interested in the truth. Well, when I was a kid, I met Einstein. And I said, do you believe in God? He said, which one? Then I said, well, do you believe in truth? He said, what do you mean by truth? That certain things are so. He says, like what? He pinned me down. He wouldn't let me get away with language. I said, well, this is smooth. He says, you really believe that, don't you? I said, yes, I do. And he put it under a microscope, and it looked rough. So I said, is that what it's really like? He said, we cannot see things as they really are, only as our receptors. You can't see the craters of the moon unless you look at a telescope, because your receptors don't pick it up. There are radio waves crossing this room. You can't sense them. There are germs on the table. With a microscope you can. So humans, they use the word higher consciousness. You can't be conscious unless you had variable receptors. Do you know what I mean by that?
What's a variable receptor?
Microscope, telescope,
Okay.
magnetometers, different instruments to sense things you can't sense. Mm-hmm. So when people say, the way I see the world is the way it is, that's ridiculous. We can't. We can only see it dependent on the quality of our receptors and background.
This week on London Real, I have a one-to-one chat with Wietse van der Werf, the founder of Blackfish.
The scale of what we're destroying in the oceans, which essentially is the largest biodiversity we have on this planet, which is really the life support system we have. The level of destruction is just astronomical, and we're not seeing it, it's not visible. We're talking corporations that are breaking the law, destroying the environment, destroying what essentially allows us to live on this planet, the ocean. A strong movement of citizens that say we've had enough of this stuff, like we just don't stand for it.
Do you ever think your life's in danger by what you're doing?
I mean, we have to be careful. We're dealing with big interests. When a species is this endangered, do we need more lobbying? Do we need more talking? A fully trained drone pilot sits on shore, is literally steering it, and you're getting a live stream.
And who makes that call to go in and cut the nets? I mean, is that your call?
That is, I guess, the Blackfish's call.
On Sunday, London Real presents Wietse van der Werf, Blackfish.
If we see something that is it's clear that it's illegal, then we're willing to take that extra step.